I've actually gotten to the point where it's been a while since I've done one of these videos for you guys, I start to get anxiety. It's not that I don't like asking questions or answering questions or even mind answering questions, but sometimes it gets hard when I haven't done an update in a little while and people come up to me and ask me, what's going on, what's the latest. I so greatly appreciate that you guys care, and it does make me feel good when you ask how I'm doing and what's going on. But it's just a little bit easier if you come up to me and say, saw your latest updates, and we go from there. Kind of takes the pressure off of repeating like depressing things over and over. You guys are so funny though. When I posted that post and said, that my transfer had failed, multiple people Venmo'd me money and said, go get yourself a drink. So that was really sweet. And again, I had a huge outpouring of love, and I so appreciate that. And I still am finding out that people are, looking at my updates and keeping up with me that I had no idea about. So I really appreciate that, and I appreciate you guys and the encouragement I get for talking about this stuff, because it's not easy. So if you are Facebook friends with me, you've probably seen that my embryo transfer on the 19th of June didn't work. That was really hard. I was a little bit prepared for it beforehand. Not that anything can really prepare you completely for it, but I had been taking tests at home, and so I kind of was anticipating a negative. And so I asked the clinic if I could just start again in the next cycle, so the following month, and they said, yeah, that's fine. So to catch you up on the latest, I just started started my period. Today is Friday, July 14th, I think. And I started my period last Friday, so it's been a week now. When I started it, I called the clinic and asked if I could come in for a baseline ultrasound, as our usual process goes. They said yes. So this Monday, a few days ago, I went in and did a baseline ultrasound. Chris and I had already had scheduled a consultation with the doctor via the phone, and that was set for the following day, Tuesday morning. And so he wanted to talk about like the failed transfer and the next plans and everything. So I did go Monday, get my baseline ultrasound, but they gave me a whole new calendar for the next cycle for this month. But they said, don't start any meds until you talk to him, just to be sure to see if he wants to run any more tests or do anything. But it seemed like we were going to be good to go for the next month and try again, since we have 2 embryos left frozen. So Tuesday morning, we had our conversation with the doctor, and he said, I'm just really surprised that it didn't work. All of us were really shocked, because my body had responded to the meds really well, and he said everything was set up great. My uterus lining was nice and thick, and he said the transfer went well. He was able to place the embryo in a really good spot, and so he said we were just really surprised that it didn't work. And so he said, I'd really like to do some more tests for you guys, just to make sure that everything is okay. So if you recall, last year when everything started, they had found that I have a bicornuate uterus, so with the 2 different sides to it, 2 different sections, I guess you'd call it, with like a septum down the middle. And then they had also told me that my right tube is completely blocked, and my left tube originally we thought was blocked, but is actually open a little bit. He had told us a year ago that it took a lot of like pressure pushing the contrast in when they were looking at it to get it through that opening. So it's not very open, it's like partially blocked. And we had wondered back then if maybe it was hydrosalpinx, which just to refresh your guys' memory, is a thing where your tubes are open, but they're inflamed and filled with a fluid that is toxic to embryos. So he said that a lot of the times the hydrocele thinks is obvious, but in my case, it's not at all, and they were never really sure for certain if I don't have it in that one partially open tube. So he said, you know, I would hate to do this again with your remaining 2 embryos because they are so precious, and I'd really like to see them both come to full term. And so I'm hesitant to do another cycle before we look into this more because I don't want to have you lose another one. So he recommended that I call my OB and set up a surgery consultation for laparoscopic surgery. He wants them to look in there. I guess your tubes are so tiny and delicate, they really can't see into them from the inside. So he's had a scope up there when he removed my polyp, and he had a camera in my uterus and was able to see my uterus from the inside and everything, but you really can't see your tubes that way. So he said the only way to really be able to tell is via laparoscopic surgery, where they make tiny incisions in your belly and go in that way. So it's a pretty non-invasive or minimally invasive surgery. And he said, you know, it might answer some other questions for us too, because you said you'd had terrible periods forever. And he said, is that still happening? I said, yeah, it's always been like that. And so he said, well, we might find that you do have endometriosis when they're up there. So that is the plan right now. He wants me to go get that surgery done. And then while they're in there, he said that they will do like a blue dye test, run some blue dye through my tubes, and just see exactly where it's flowing and if things are open at all, and just how my tubes react to that. So it's it was hard to hear. I did not expect that, and it feels like I'm right back to last year where I originally was. It kind of feels like I'm back at square one, and of course, like, the delayed time is always just an awful feeling. So I did process through it. I really went into like panic stress mode that day and ended up staying home from work. It is still hard to wrap my head around, and I'm trying to think positive. I'm thinking about the answers that we might get. I have always wondered if I had endometriosis, and really, as a woman, they don't offer you any help for that. If you talk to providers about your painful or heavy periods, they kind of just tell you that they can put you back on birth control because that regulates your cycle. Like, you know, if your periods are irregular, it'll regulate like the timing of them. It'll make them a little bit lighter and a little less painful. So I've talked to multiple providers throughout the years, and that's the same thing that they've told me, and nobody once has ever said, you know, if you suspect you may have endometriosis, then you can get laparoscopic surgery if you decide to. No one has ever walked me through that or told me that, so that's kind of a bummer, again, on our healthcare system. I mean, don't even get me started on how frustrated I am with everything about healthcare regarding fertility right now, but laparoscopic is the next step, basically. And I called my OB. His medical assistant said that he was out for the week, and because of that, he was a little bit backed up in the next few weeks. So she said the soonest she had was August 7th. So that that'll be my surgery consultation. And she said usually surgery ends up being about 3 weeks after that, so we're probably looking at the end of August for surgery. And in the meantime, of course, we'll try anyway, hope for a miracle, but yeah, it's just a bummer setback. And I have told a few people so far. People have asked me what's going on, and it's definitely hard repeating depressing news over and over. So if you do have questions, please do ask me, because you guys know that I want this to be a more open topic and it needs to be talked about. It helps me tremendously if you say, hey, I saw your recent updates. So anyway, I think that's pretty much all I've got for now. Just keeping you guys in the loop, and I'll let you know. I probably will not let you know until August 7th what's going on next, and depending on what they see in that surgery, they may have to remove that partially open tube, or potentially both tubes. So yeah, we'll see what comes next. It's a hard one to wrap my head around. I had to kind of process through the loss of, or potential loss of, being able to conceive naturally, which is just really devastating. I know that my tubes aren't working right anyway, but you know, it's kind of like the loss of what would have been, or what you hoped it would be. And then it will also mean that if I want to have children, hopefully I will still be able to carry, and I know that's the main goal, but it would mean that I would have to do IVF in order to be pregnant. That would be my only option in the future. So it's definitely, it feels like mourning a loss, but it's just the next step in the process. So anyway, I hope you guys are doing well, and thank you so much for all of your love and support. I really appreciate it, and I'll let you know what happens next.